to my channel, Bookworms. Today I'm bringing you the mid-year freakout tag. So this obviously has been created and discussed on BookTube for ages now, and this is going to be my first time taking part. So I'm really looking forward to doing the tag. I've read such incredible books already so far this year, and I can't wait to tell you about them. So the first question on this is, what is the best book that you've read so far this year? So this is very difficult. I've read so many incredible books so far. I think I'm starting to get into the groove of picking up books that I know I will like. So I think I have around 19 5-star books so far this year out of 57 books that I've read. So this one is very tough to pick just one book, but I've done it, and for this I'm going to say The Cotton Candy Massacre. This is definitely one of the best books that I've read this year. You'll probably be able to tell I've talked about it so many times already. It has like such creepy elements and creepy clowns. It was a book that I read because of my Killer Clown vlog that I was making, and I thoroughly enjoyed this book. It was incredible. I love the way that it has been written. It's so unique. I loved reading it. If I could go back and reread it for the first time, it would just be a dream. So yeah, I'm going to say The Cotton Candy Massacre is the best book I've read so far this year. So the next question in this tag is, what's the best sequel that you've read? For me, I typically don't read a lot of series, but I have done this year. I picked up the second book in the Lake Witched trilogy by Stephen Grimm Jones. It probably wasn't the best sequel that I read so far this year. I definitely do prefer My Heart is a Chainsaw, so I'm not going to pick that book. I also started the Wayward Children series by Shauna McGuire, and those are incredible. Like, they're magical realism, like fantasy based stories. They are a collection of novellas. I think there is 8 of them, and I started this series in May and finished it in June. So well, I've caught up. There's 2 more books to be released, but they are incredible. Some of them are better than others, so I'm going to say that the best sequel is going to be Lost in the Moment and Found, which was the one that came out at the start of this year. Had a lot of dark and heavy topics that it discussed, and you had a way of connecting with the character who was involved. And Ansi decides to escape a certain situation that she doesn't want to be in at home. Her stepdad is a bad guy, so she decides to leave, and she stumbles into this store where the lost things go, and she finds a portal that goes to different worlds. And that's like the premise of these stories. Children find doors to different worlds and they explore it. Lost in the Moment and Found, for me, I think is one of the better books in this series, simply because it was so magical, and it, in my opinion, it kind of screamed Alice in Wonderland. It had that vibe, and I really loved how it starts to tie things together. The 9th book that's coming out goes back to the Wayward Children house or school with Ansi involved. So I'm liking how it's being pulled together, and we're going back. So yeah, Lost in the Moment and Found is probably the best sequel that I read so far this year. But the next one is the biggest disappointment of the year, and for me, I have to say the only book that I've given 2 stars. That is The Horror Hotel. I did discuss this in a previous video that I did. This one was just not it for me. It's a YA story that is centered around these paranormal investigators who have a YouTube channel, and they are exploring this haunted hotel. To me, it was bland in the storytelling. It was about the Hotel Cecil in LA, which is pretty famous for the disappearance and death of Eliza Lamb. And yeah, so they used that story and fictionalized it, and the characters had no depth to them. It just wasn't the right story for me. I don't typically read YA all that often. The next question on the list is, what's your biggest surprise? And for me, I think that's going to be Psycho. It's a classic and I have never read it, and I wasn't sure that I was going to like it, which is why I've put it off for so long. But I thoroughly enjoyed it, which was a surprise to me. I rated it 5 stars, so clearly, even though it was a classic, a modern classic, that I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's pretty dark and it's just an incredible read. And the audio book on Scribd was definitely a good addition to reading it. So I would say Psycho has been my biggest surprise so far. So the next question is a new favourite author. This is probably not a surprise, but I am choosing Christopher Robinson for this. I think that after reading The Cotton Candy Massacre, I definitely wanted to pick up The October Society, and once I knew that this was a 5-star, I wanted to pick this up so bad. And I've actually just finished reading it, and again, it was a 5-star read. He has such a way of writing that is so unique, and it pulls in the cinematic element. So this one is like a movie, and The October Society is like a TV show. So it's so intriguing, and in The October Society, I really loved how it even had like ads within it. I want to talk more about The October Society in a different video, so I need to read season 2 before I can do that video. But Christopher Robinson's definitely a new favourite author this year. So the next question is, what book has made you cry? I just don't cry all that often when I'm reading books, but this year I was close. I did feel very emotional when reading this book, and that's We Spread by Ian Reid. This is a story based on an elderly woman who is falling into the traps of dementia and not remembering anything or remembering it wrong. So I feel like We Spread takes real scares and real horror and created this masterpiece surrounding what humans actually fear, and creating this incredible philosophical thriller, I would say. So I thought it was beautifully written, and one that definitely made me emotional. So I would recommend picking this up if you haven't read it yet. It's so worth it. It was so beautiful and lyrical, scary, and just terrifying. So yeah, I would say that that's probably one that's the closest to making me cry. So the next question is, what book has made you happy? And that's a tough one. I think books always make me happy. I love reading and delving into different worlds and stories and discovering creepy minds. But I think a book that definitely made me happy was How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. I adore Grady Hendrix and his quirky horror. It's definitely a bit different to the standard horror that you get. He likes to make it a bit fun and creepy, but still delivering a very good message, and that's definitely How to Sell a Haunted House. This is about siblings and their relationship, and they have to come and work together to sell their family home after their parents die. And their home is a haunted house, and this isn't your standard haunted house book. It has puppets. So when they introduced that into the story, I was like, of course, I could have guessed. It's a Grady Hendrix story. He's going to add in such wacky elements. So yeah, this one I would say made me happy. I really loved the focus on grief in the beginning, moving into the weirdness, and then the discovery and the gory elements. It was definitely a progression of the story, and highlights how siblings can have that fractured relationship but then can come together when they need to. Lots and lots of puppets. So yeah, I was really loving it, and I think I would really love for it to become a movie. I'd love to see these puppets like just roaming in the house. Like, I think it would be so cool. So yeah, How to Sell a Haunted House definitely made me happy. Next question is the most beautiful book that you've read. So this I would say is Moon of the Crusted Snow. This is a beautiful native story that is centered around a community who are already isolated but are made isolated even further by having this storm cut their supplies, and they're having to ration, and it's a post apocalyptic style story. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a slower read. Typically read faster stories, but this was a novella that brought you into the community and slowly like introduces you to the world and the horrors that exist within this isolated setting. So yeah, it's definitely a beautiful story and a beautiful book. So next up is the new releases that I haven't read yet, and that is so many. I've got way too many to list. I've done a whole anticipated releases already, but one of them that's on that list is Silver Nitrate by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. I really loved Mexican Gothic that I read from this author. I'm yet to read The Daughter of Dr. Moreau, but I love the sound of Silver Nitrate and really am looking forward to picking this one up. So those are the questions that I'm choosing to answer in this video. I hope you have enjoyed. If you have, do let me know your mid-year freakout as well. What has been your favorite and worst books so far this year? I'd really like to have that conversation down below. So yeah, I hope you have enjoyed. Until next time, keep the pages turning and embrace the darkness. Bye.